Hello students, in this video I am going to talk about the important stuff which you need to remember from the Guyton. So take out your highlighters and highlight the important points which I am telling you in this video. So let's get started. First of all, we are going to talk about the chapter 1, that is homeostasis. That is the functional organization of the human body and control of the internal environment. So the first paragraph in the first line, the very first line, the physiology is the science that seeks to explain the physical and chemical mechanisms that are responsible for the origin, development, and progression of life. Highlight these three lines. This is the definition of physiology. And what is human physiology? Next, come to the next paragraph. The science of human physiology attempt to explain the specific characteristic and mechanism of the human body that make it a living being. So the fact that we remain alive is a result of complex control system. Hunger make us seek food and fear make us seek refuge. Sensation of cold make us look for warmth. So these are the examples of the human physiology. Now, next go to the next heading. Cells are the living units of the body. So underline all the things which I am saying. The basic living unit of the body is the cell. Each organ is an aggregate of many different cells held together by the intercellular supporting structure. Each type of cell is specially adapted to perform one or few particular function. For instance, the red blood cell, numbering about 25 trillion in each human being, transport oxygen from the lung to the tissues. Although the red blood cell are the most abundant of any single type of cell in the body, 75 trillion additional cells of other type perform function different from those of red blood cell. The entire body then contain about 100 trillion cells. And next, although many cells of the body differ markedly from one another, they have certain basic characteristics that are alike. So highlight all this, right? So the release of energy, the general chemical mechanism for changing nutrient into energy are basically the same, and all cells deliver product of the chemical reaction to surrounding fluid. All the cells have the ability to reproduce. When cells of a particular type are destroyed, the remaining cell of this they will generate new cells until the supply is replenished. The next is the internal environment. The extracellular fluid. Highlight all this. About 60% of the adult human body is fluid, a water solution of ions and a substance, although most of this fluid is inside the cell and is known as intercellular fluid. One third is in the spaces outside the cell and called extracellular fluid. The extracellular fluid is in constant motion throughout the body. It is transported rapidly in the blood and then mixed between the blood and the tissue fluid by diffusion through the capillary walls. In the extracellular fluid, there are ions and nutrients that are needed by the cell to maintain life. Thus, all cells live in essentially the same environment, the extracellular fluid. For this reason, the extracellular fluid is also called the internal environment of the body or the milieu interior. That is a term introduced more than 150 years ago by the French psychologist Claude. Cells are capable of living and performing this spatial function as long as the proper concentration of oxygen, glucose, ions, amino acids, fatty acids, and other constants are available in the internal environment. It's important for you to know the differences between the extracellular and intercellular fluid, as we have discussed in the lecture Transport Across Cell Membrane. So the extracellular fluid contains large amount of sodium chloride, bicarbonate, ion plus nutrient for the cells, such as oxygen, glucose, fatty acid, amino acid. Highlight all this. It also contains carbon dioxide that is being transported from the cells to the lungs to be excreted, plus other cellular waste products that are being transported to the kidney for excretion. The intercellular fluid differs significantly from the extracellular fluid. For example, it contains large amount of potassium, magnesium, and phosphate ion instead of sodium and chloride ion. Special mechanism for transporting ions from cell membrane maintain the high concentration difference between the extracellular and the intercellular fluid. Now let's come to the next heading, homeostasis. That is the maintenance of a nearly constant internal environment. The definition of homeostasis is important. Just highlight the text which is written in the skin or pink box. That is the maintenance of a nearly constant internal environment is homeostasis. All right. Now you're going to see the so the definition is written in the italic. Homeostasis to describe the maintenance of nearly constant condition in the internal environment. Essentially, all organ and tissues of the body perform functions that help maintain this relatively constant condition. For instance, the lung provide oxygen to the extracellular fluid to replenish the oxygen used by the cells. The kidney maintain constant ion concentration, and the GIT provide nutrients. All right. So then the example of the hydrogen ion that is written in the second paragraph, fifth line. Variation in the blood hydrogen ion concentration is normally less than 5 nanomoles per liters. So this is how important or how minute the control mechanism of our body are that are controlling this internal environment. All right. So the powerful control system exists for maintaining the concentration of sodium and hydrogen ion, as well as for most of the other ion nutrient substances in the body at levels that permit the cell tissues and organs to perform their normal function despite wide environmental variations. So what is disease? The disease is often considered to be a state of disrupted homeostasis. Highlight this line. However, even in the presence of disease, the homeostatic mechanism continue to operate and maintain vital function through multiple compensation. All right. So just highlight the points which I'm reading it. All right. So the last definition, the last 3 lines of this paragraph, the discipline of pathophysiology seeks to explain how the various physiological processes are altered in disease or injury. Now let's talk about the extracellular fluid transport and mixing system, the blood circulatory system. Extracellular fluid is transported throughout the body in 2 stages. Highlight this. The first stage is movement of the blood to the body and the blood vessels, and the second is the movement of the fluid between the blood capillaries and the intercellular spaces between the tissue cells. The next thing is, as the blood passes through the blood capillaries, continuous exchange of extracellular fluid also occurs between the plasma portion of the blood and the interstitial fluid that fills the intercellular spaces. This process is shown in figure 1.2. The wall of the capillaries are permeable to most molecules in the plasma of the blood, with the exception of the plasma proteins, which are too large to really pass through the capillaries. Therefore, large amount of fluid and dissolved constantly diffuse back and forth between the blood and the tissue spaces, as shown by the arrow. This process of diffusion is caused by the kinetic motion of the molecule in both the plasma and the interstitial fluid. All right. So just highlight till here. Now, let's see how the nutrients are originated in the extracellular fluid. So you need to know about the respiratory system. The blood pick up oxygen in the alveoli, thus requiring the oxygen needed by the cell. The membrane between the alveoli and the lumen of the pulmonary capillary, the alveolar membrane is about 0.4 to 2 micrometer thick, and oxygen rapidly diffuses the molecular motion through this membrane into the blood. The next is the GIT tract. A large portion of the blood pumped by the heart passes through the wall of the GIT tract. Dissolved nutrients, including carbohydrate, fatty acid, and amino acid, absorbed from the ingested food into the extracellular fluid of the blood. So you must know the liver and the other organs that perform primary metabolic function. Mark this point. Make a star over here. This is important. The liver. All right. The liver has 2 main functions. Highlight one word. The liver, that is the third line of this paragraph. The liver changes the chemical composition of many of the substances to more usable forms and other tissues of the body. And that second last line, the liver eliminates the certain waste product produced in the body and toxic substances that are ingested. So for musculoskeletal system, so if the muscles are not present, the body could not move to obtain the food required for nutrients. Similarly, there are certain systems or certain that are responsible for removing the metabolic end products, removal of carbon dioxide by the lungs. At the same time, the blood pick up oxygen, carbon dioxide is released from the blood into the lung alveoli, and that is true. Carbon dioxide is the most abundant. Highlight this line. Carbon dioxide is the most abundant of all the metabolism product. All right. So role of kidneys is important. Make a star and read it. If you don't understand any of the point in this paragraph, the kidney related, the 2 paragraphs, do ask me. Okay. The next is digestive tract. We've already talked about this, and we've already talked about the liver as well. Make a star over here. And this is important, the role of liver and the role of kidneys. You must know for your exam point of view. So how body functions are regulated. We have already talked about during the lecture that the body function regulated through nervous system. So this important, highlight all this which I am speaking. The nervous system is composed of 3 major parts: the sensory input portion, the central nervous system, and the motor output portion. Sensory receptors are present. They detect the state of the body or the state of the surrounding. For instance, receptor in the skin alert us whenever the object touches the skin at any one point. There are 2 examples of the sensory organ, eyes and the ears. They both are sensory organ. The central nervous system is composed of brain and spinal cord. The brain can store information, can generate thought, create ambitions, and determine reaction that the body perform in response to a sensation. Appropriate signals are then transmitted to the motor output portion of the nervous system to carry out one's desire. An important segment of the nervous system is called the autonomic system. It operates at subconscious level and controls many functions of the internal organs, including the level of pumping activity by the heart, movement of the GIT tract, and secretion of the many of the body glands. The next system is the hormone system, which is important in regulating the nervous system. So it is located in the body. We have 8 major endocrine glands. Highlight all whatever I am speaking. And several organ and tissue that secrete chemical substances called hormones. Hormones are transported in the extracellular fluid to other part of the body to help regulate cellular function. For example, thyroid hormone, all these hormones, we have already talked about all these hormones in the slides. Highlight all this if you want to read the text through books. All right. Then the next is protection of the body. So there are 2 important systems, immune system and integumentary system, which are important in protection of the body. The reproduction system is not considered as a homeostatic function sometimes. However, it helps maintain homeostasis by generating new beings to take the place of those that are dying. So just know this, right? Sometimes reproduction is not, so it helps maintaining homeostasis. Okay? The next thing is the control system of the body. So the human body has thousands of control systems. Just highlight this. Some of the most intricate of the system are the genetic control system that operate in all cells to help control intercellular and extracellular functions. The genetic control system is one control system that is present in the body. Next paragraph, many other control systems operate within the organs to control function of the individual part of the organs. Others operate throughout the entire body to control the interrelation between the organs. For instance, so these are some of the examples when the systems are integrating with each other. For instance, the respiratory system operate in association with nervous system and they regulate the concentration of carbon dioxide in the extracellular fluid. The liver and pancreas regulate the concentration of glucose in the extracellular fluid, and the kidneys regulate the concentration of hydrogen, sodium, potassium, phosphate, other ions in the extracellular fluid. Now you must know the examples of the control mechanism. One example is the regulation of oxygen and carbon dioxide concentration in the ECF. You just need to mark this heading. Don't need to read the whole paragraph. Just remember that this regulation is called the oxygen buffering function of the hemoglobin. The next paragraph, regulation of arterial blood pressure. No need to read the whole paragraph. Just remember this figure, the figure 1.3. All right. So next thing is the normal ranges and the physical characteristics of important extracellular fluid. The second paragraph, the most important are the limits. So the table which is given in this lecture, in this chapter, you don't need to memorize this. The slide which is shared in transport across cell membrane, that slide is important and those values are important for you to learn. All right, most important. So second paragraph, highlight this. Most important are the limit beyond which a normality can cause death. For example, increase in body temperature of only 11 degrees Fahrenheit above normal can lead to a cycle of increasing metabolism to destroy the cell. A narrow range for acid-base balance in the body with normal pH value of 7.4, lethal value is only about 0.4 if on either side of normal. Another factor is the potassium ion. So there are 3 important points during which, because if they are deranged, then it can lead to death. So one is the temperature, the other is the pH, and the third thing is the potassium ion. And the important factor is the potassium in concentration. Whenever it decreases to less than 1/3 normal, a person is likely to paralyze as a result of the inability of the nerves to carry signal. For example, if potassium concentration increases, the heart muscle is likely to be severely depressed. When calcium concentration falls below 1, a person is likely to experience tetanic contraction of the muscle throughout the body. Alright, when glucose concentration falls, a person frequently exhibits extreme mental irritability and sometimes even has convulsion. What are convulsions? Convulsions are the seizures. Do Google this term, what are convulsions, alright? Next thing is how the control mechanisms are, what are the characteristics of the control system of our body. So there are 2 mechanisms. One is the negative feedback nature of the most control system. Highlight all the text. Most control system of the body act by negative feedback that can be explained by reviewing some of the homeostatic control mentioned previously. In the regulation of carbon dioxide concentration, read all the text that is written in this paragraph. Highlight this. One example is the regulation of the carbon dioxide and the other is the regulation of the arterial blood pressure. So these are 2 examples of the negative feedback. Gain of control system, do not read this, just cross the whole paragraphs. All right. The next thing is the positive feedback. So the positive, why do most control systems of the body operate by negative feedback rather than positive feedback? If one considers the nature of positive feedback, it is obvious that positive feedback led to instability, and instability and it can also cause death. All right, so positive feedback do not read any of the paragraph below. Just go under this heading. Positive feedback can sometimes be useful. So there are few instances the body uses the positive feedback to its advantage. One is a blood clotting. There is an example of a use of positive feedback. When a blood vessel is ruptured and a clot begins to form, multiple enzymes or clotting factor activated. Some of these enzymes act on the other inactivated enzyme of the immediately adjacent blood, thus causing more blood clotting. This process continues until the hole in the vessel is plugged and bleeding no longer occurs. On occasion, this mechanism can get out of hand and cause formation of the unwanted clot. In fact, that is what initiates most acute heart attacks that can be caused by a clot beginning on the inside surface of the atherosclerotic plaque. This is another term which you must Google. In a coronary artery and then growing until the artery is blocked. So this is one example. So clotting is done by the positive feedback. But if the clot is present, if it continue, the process continue, then it can lead to the coronary artery block. Coronary arteries are the arteries that supply the heart, and when they are blocked, that can cause the heart attack. The next thing is the childbirth. Childbirth is another instance in which positive feedback is valuable. So when uterine contractions become strong enough for the baby head to begin pushing the cervix, there's going to be a stretch of the cervix, and that is going to send signals to the uterine muscle back to the body of the uterus, and it causes more powerful contractions. Thus, the uterine contraction stretch the cervix, and cervical stretch causes stronger contractions. So this is a positive feedback, and the figure that is being present in the slides is important. You must know how this process occurs, and that and when this process becomes powerful enough, the baby is born. If they're not powerful enough, the contraction usually die out, and a few days pass before they begin again. Another important use of positive feedback is for the generation of nerve signal. That is the third example. That is stimulation of the membrane of a nerve fiber cause the leakage. So you don't need to remember this example. Just remember two examples: the clotting and the childbirth. For the positive feedback, read the both two paragraphs. All right. Now let's talk about the last point over here: the adaptive control. So what is the adaptive control? Uh, so highlight this the other page, that is the principal feed forward control is. So what is the feed forward control? Sensing a signal from the moving part, they apprise the brain whether the movement is performed correctly. If not, the brain correct the feed forward signal and send to the muscle next time the movement is required, and if still further correction is, this process will perform again for subsequent movement. This process is called the adaptive control. Adaptive control is a delay negative feedback. Just highlight till here. So this was all chapter 1. Highlight the important things and integrate with the things we have learned in the lecture during in the class and with the slides. And I hope you are going to understand this topic, which is the primary topic and the basic topic of whole physiology. So thank you for listening, and